Three Demons, Book 2, Chapter 24, Damage Control. Ria's head jerked slightly as she felt a familiar presence nearby. "Ria, are you alright?" Ivy asked Ria as Cleo, her crocodile familiar, poked her head out of her bag. "It feels like the presence of two people are disappearing, and very quickly." Ria then begins jolting towards the location of where the dissipating presence is being felt from. This catches Ivy off guard as she stumbles from running after Ria. "Ria, what's going on?" Ivy asked Ria as she continued to chase after her. "I don't know why, but I just have a bad feeling." Ria revealed, the tone of her voice that of worry and determination. "You don't think it could be any of our friends, right?" Ivy asked, hoping that it isn't, despite now having a similar feeling. "I really hope not," Ria responds, her focus not breaking once. Suddenly, Ria and Ivy stop in their tracks as a large, slender figure appears in front of them. His appearance, from his hair, his skin color to his attire, make him look monochrome in appearance. The expression on his face is that of someone who has found inner peace. Despite that, Ria is getting the opposite vibes coming from him. "Move! I've got somewhere important to be!" Ria loudly demands of the man in front of them as his gaze moves towards them. The man sighs. "Lady Gabrielle, I do apologize, but that's not going to be possible." A gray aura begins to swirl around the man as tension fills the air. "Ivy, I suggest we get moving," Cleo exclaims. "But we can't just leave with him in our way." Ivy's eyes narrow as she stares daggers straight through the man. "Ivy, Cleo is right. I want you to go find out who's the cause of that presence. I'll stay here and take care of him. I'll distract him long enough for you to make an escape, okay?" Ria tells Ivy, coming to an agreement with Cleo as Ria's dark aura began to form around her. Ria and the monochrome foe stand off, their auras clashing against one another. Ria rushes towards the man, forming a dark red ball of fire in her hand as she fires it at the man, engulfing him in the flames and smoke. Ivy took this as her cue to get out of there, running past the two of them as she makes her way towards the presence, using Cleo as her guide. Suddenly, a slash from a sword comes for Ria as she jumps out of the way, the monochrome man standing there unfazed from her attack, wielding his blade, akin to that of a long sword, as he sits it down, tip of the blade first, as he places both of his hands on the pommel of the handle. "Lady Ria, if you plan on killing me here today, you're going to have to try a little bit harder," the man tells Ria, his soft, teacher-like expression not leaving his face. Ria grits her teeth as she once again throws a ball of fire towards the man, which causes him to sigh in disappointment as he cuts the flame in half, evaporating the flame in the process. However, as he is distracted, Ria appears next to him as he grabs his arm, smirking at him as she goes to drain him of the liquid in his body. Ria's eyes widen as the man slashes down at her, cutting deep into her arm as she fails to move away from him in time. It becomes clear that her soul bond does not affect him unlike everyone else she has faced off against this far. "I have been designated as Jinsei. It means life, which is ironic considering the ability I've been blessed with," Jinsei goes on to explain, introducing himself in the process. Ria's eyes narrow as she holds onto her bleeding arm, looking at Jinsei as she tries to figure out a way to defeat him as quickly as possible. "All aspects of negativity have no effect on me. In fact, all aspects of negativity are under my control. Your arcanic abilities, your soul bond, have no effect on me," Jinsei reveals to Ria, making her become frustrated, though she knows she can't let it get to her, otherwise she'll be killed. Ria stands herself up, her gaze interchanged with Jinsei's. "It doesn't matter what aspect of life you have control over, it just means I'll have to find a different way to defeat you. I'm not this one-trick pony, there's a reason I've made it this far with such a small company." Jinsei, unfazed by Ria's determination. "Even so, not even you can fight against what's already set in stone by fate." Ria smirks. "Well, I don't let words of others dictate my actions. I do whatever I feel is best, regardless of the situation." She thinks back to what Randy had said to Mochi during their battle, mirroring what he had said even if they weren't the exact same words. Jinsei sighs once more, readying his blade as he prepares to strike. Ria doesn't give him any more time as she rushes him once more, using hand-to-hand combat against Jinsei, using her arcana to shield her hands and arms as she deflects against the sword strikes from Jinsei. Rhea begins throwing a series of punches and kicks at Jinsei, none of which connect as he flawlessly dodges each strike from her. The battle seemingly at a stalemate as the two become evenly matched. Jinsei's blade is then engulfed in a dark red aura, the same shade of dark red that was the two balls of fire that Rhea had shot at him earlier in the fight. Rhea's eyes widen as Jinsei swings his blade down, firing back the two balls of fire at her, making contact as she flies backwards, the fire burning parts of her sweater in the process. Damn, Rhea says to herself as she winces from the burning sensation across the upper half of her body. Whenever I make contact with negativity, it is stored in my body, to which I can then redirect it back at my opponent whenever I feel is necessary. It's such a disgusting use of my ability, but when you're put in a life or death scenario, you have to do things you find repulsive if you want to survive. Jinsei reveals to Rhea, his voice filled with sadness. It seems he really does feel disgusted with using that attack. Rhea begins to stand herself back onto her feet, her body continuing to ache from the burns. She narrows her eyes at Jinsei, her determination still as unbreakable as before. Jinsei tilts his head, seeing Rhea refusing to give up despite not being able to win this fight makes him both curious and confused. Lady Rhea, I commend your resiliency. You have my respect. It's just a shame you're on the wrong side of this conflict. Rhea's dark red aura once again engulfs her, her determination fueling her as she once again charges at him, using her arcanic abilities to create after-image clones of herself, confusing Jinsei as she strikes from multiple directions, landing her first strike against him the entire fight. Time seems to stop for everyone, as suddenly, that, similar to an implosion, goes off, pushing Rhea back and causing her after-images to disappear, as a huge explosion goes off, pushing her back from the forest as Jinsei looms over her, his body showing signs from the beating he took. Rhea smirks up at him, knowing she pushed him into a corner even if his negative control saved him at the last minute. I commend you, Lady Rhea. I'm extremely impressed that you were able to push me like that. Didn't think I'd have to use my ability like that. Even if it was a split second, all of your injuries were healed. Then I bottled up all that negativity in until it imploded on itself. Then you know the rest. Jinsei reveals to Rhea as she looks down and notices the burns on her body are no longer there, along with the burning sensation from them as well. It seems your beloved ability is a double-edged sword. If you're not careful, you'll end up bringing your opponent back to 100%. I think I'm close to figuring you out. Rhea smirks at Jinsei as his eyes narrow slightly. Suddenly, with a swift motion, Jinsei's blade cuts through the air, creating a shockwave that forces Rhea to roll out of the way to gain some distance. The ground shakes from its impact, causing debris to fall from the roof above them. Rhea hops back onto her feet as she observes Jinsei, attempting to connect the intricacies of Jinsei's ability as she attempts to find a way to exploit his power. Jinsei then appears in front of Rhea as the two of them clash once more, the intensity causing the very air around them to be charged with their auras, creating an otherworldly spectacle. Rhea's strikes becoming more focused as the fight goes on. Jinsei's focus is still unbroken as a smirk suddenly comes across his face. Rhea's eyes widen as Jinsei brings his sword down, cutting Rhea's arm once more as she jumps back away from him. Jinsei continues to smirk at Rhea as he speaks up. Remember that thing I said about redirecting my opponent's attacks against them? As Jinsei asks that, Rhea's eyes widen in shock as she looks down at her arm. Her arm begins to wrinkle and shrink in size and become nothing but skin and bone as the liquid in her arm disappears. End of Chapter 24.